A 7, higher or lower? A 5, higher or lower? Higher or lower than 5? Higher? Okay. All right, 8, higher or lower? Lower? All right, lower, so we'll put a 7. And then the 5, higher or lower? Higher or lower? 4 or 6? A 4 or 6 is that lower? Lower. All right, James, now you can go with 18,674 points. Actual number of slick points. I'll write it down below. Can I get a drum roll, please? Award breakthrough with an extra 1,000 points. A couple quick announcements, very important announcements before we move on with ASM. The first thing, lunch is going to be by grade today. So 7th graders, when you walk in, 7th graders here and 8th graders there. It'll be marked. Okay? Raise your hand if you dissected a frog today. Good job. These last things, this is super, super important. Is anybody having that like sweat from the front of your shins going on right now? Like you're so hot? Alright, because of the heat, breakthrough will dismiss today at 1:45. Perfect homework today.
So if you could tell us your name and your role in Breakthrough.
My name is Chenwa Duapong, and I am a development intern for Breakthrough Philly.
And can you talk a little bit about your own middle and high school experience?
Yeah, so I went to a KIPP school, which is a national charter school all throughout Houston and nationwide. And they have a similar breakthrough model. Can I start over?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They have a similar model to breakthrough in my opinion.
Why don't you start completely over?
Oh, okay.
Just start over.
Gotcha. So I went to a KIPP school for middle school. They are a national charter school, and I think they have a similar model to Breakthrough in the sense that they have really young teachers coming into the classroom, and they use their energy and their passion and their recent college experience to engage our students and really connect with us. But when I was in the classroom, I didn't know that they were that young because there's also teachers who have been more established, who have been teaching for a really long time. So that juxtaposition.
Why don't you start with just sort of that juxtaposition?
So that relationship made me think that all of my teachers have been really established. But I wasn't aware that some of them were college students or Teach for America students who had only been teaching for 1 or 2 years. But as I grew older, I realized, oh, my teachers were only 22 years old, and they were really, really passionate about English, and they were telling me things that really changed my worldview and my passion and engagement in my education. So being connected to students who were teachers was a really powerful experience for me.
Can you tell me if you've witnessed any similarities in...
All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so when I was in a KIPP school, I didn't realize that most of my teachers were younger, or around 20, 22 years old. I didn't realize that they had just completed Teach for America, they just graduated for college, and I didn't realize that they were on a similar path as I was, or they were so close to completing the similar path that I was on. But at Breakthrough, I think our teachers and our students really connect with each other, and they understand that their teachers are 21 years old, they're juniors, seniors in college, and in 10 years, that's going to be where you are. And I think if I had realized that at a younger age when I was in a KIPP school, that would have made that relationship so much stronger because I would have identified with my teachers. And I think the Breakthrough students are able to identify with their teachers, and they're able to ask them questions that are actually really pertinent to their immediate future that wasn't even in my my realm of realization. Like I didn't even think about asking them about their college experience because that information was fresh. I didn't think about asking them about applying to different schools or how they enjoyed being a lifelong learner, because that wasn't even a question I could fathom at that point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I know that you too are a first generation college student,
Mhm.
and I know that your high school background was a little bit different
Yeah.
than traditional breakthrough students.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to be a first generation student on a college campus, and in your case you're on an Ivy League college campus, and what that experience is like.
Yeah. So when I attended KIPP, I was really privileged in that my principal was really invested in my future, and he helped me apply to private schools for high school. So I attended a boarding school in Asheville, and that really changed the trajectory of my future, I think, in the sense that I was exposed to a different world. I was exposed to people who were middle and high class. I was exposed to people who understood what a scholarship was and how to apply for it, and they had horses in their backyard, and it was just a very different world. And I think that my mom and I, when we were applying to high school and then to college, my mom just didn't understand a lot of the questions, so she wasn't able to help me apply for financial aid, and she wasn't able to help me complete my essay, and I think that put a toll on our relationship, and it made me really realize the difference between where I was and where she wanted me to be. And it made it very real, the reason why she immigrated from Ghana and the reason why she was so invested in my future, because it just made it very real that the limitations she faced while she was in Ghana weren't going to be imposed on me anymore, because I was attending a private boarding school that allowed me to then attend the University of Pennsylvania. But being first generation has definitely been difficult for our relationship, because I've been exposed to a different world, and then it's hard to navigate where that new world fits into my old world and how to adjust to that relationship. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I think that's a great answer to the question. Okay. I'm also curious about, I like that you talked about the tension that's created in sort of your own different trajectory, even though it's one that your mother supports.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is what it's like to be on college campus. So you're there, and it sounds like you were able to get some decent financial aid to be able to attend Penn. And so now you're there, are you able to just kind of kick back and be like all of the other kids on Penn's campus, or are there still some differences for you?
I think one of the hardest things about attending Penn is that you hear a lot of students go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so broke this weekend. I can't afford this, or I can't do that. I'm so broke." And these are people who really still have the safety net of their parents' support behind them. Like if they, they're working one or two jobs, but that money is their personal, expense account. So they can fund their BYO dinners, and they can fund their new shoes that they want for that weekend. And then to hear that while I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, and to know that if I can't afford my textbooks, I can't turn to my mom and say, "Hey, can you lend me $200 for this book I need?" It's a very different understanding of what being broke means. And so to hear them use that word so lightly in jest, it just makes it much more real that we come from a very different financial background, as well as a very different emotional background, where being broke has different consequences. Where if I'm broke, my mom has to decide between paying our light bill and putting food on the table. And them being broke means they have to decide between going to Cancun for the weekend or, buying a new pair of Uggs. So that's been a strain. In addition, I would say that another another hardship of being a first-generation college student is crossing paths with people who don't perhaps understand your social background. So people who feel very differently about affirmative action, and people who feel very differently about African American bodies and their relationship to, a historically white private institution, and thinking about, 50 years ago, African American bodies weren't allowed on this campus. So we need spaces where we feel safe to be ourselves, to share our backgrounds, to share our history, and having people of higher income families and who are white coming to those spaces and saying, you're excluding us, we don't feel supported, we need all white spaces. It's very difficult to navigate that relationship between people who want to understand and people who just don't, who want to tear down what you have built up. So it's hard to find people who socially understand where you're coming from and support you without destroying what your movement's about. I'm not sure if that was very clear, but
So, based on your own personal experience, because you're a rising senior now, I'm wondering if you could give one piece of advice to, you've met some breakthrough students, including some high school students who are in the college application process. What advice would you give them? And maybe it's not one, but what advice would you give to those students who are going off to college, whether it's Penn or it's any other place?
Okay. So if I could give one piece of advice, I think it would be to be an advocate for yourself. So when you arrive on your college campus, no matter if it's a privately owned institution, if it's a PWI or HBCU or wherever you are, be confident in yourself and know that you earned your spot there. Don't let anyone deter you from being there and being motivated to succeed. Whatever they say, whatever they may feel about you has no impact on whether or not you succeed or fail, but you are in control of whether or not you go to class, whether or not you talk to your professor, whether or not you join a club that makes you really motivated and happy and allows you to give back to a community that you feel passionate about. So be confident in yourself and be an advocate for your own education. If you have a question, don't be afraid to raise your hand. You paid to attend that class, you paid to attend this institution. Raise your hand, get your money's worth of your education, and be passionate about what you're learning. Every class you take, every club you join, every person you meet is an opportunity to better yourself and to learn something new that you may never experience again and may never have experienced before. So just really be an advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't let anyone shut you down. And be confident that you earned your right to be there. You deserve to be there, and it's up to you what you make of those 4 years.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. I wonder, I didn't really know how to word this correctly, and I wonder if you already answered it, but is there anything that would have made your transition to college easier that Penn could have done or someone else could have done, since you're a first-generation college student?
Yeah.
And if you could answer to Stephanie, that would be great.
Yeah. Let me think about that. So there are things that Penn offered that I wasn't able to take part of. Is that okay?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So to better the transition between being a first-generation college student attending a college university, I would recommend that anyone attend a pre-orientation session. So if your school offers a weekend for first-generation students or multicultural students before the academic semester weekends, I would encourage everyone to attend that because it's a really great way to meet people who have a similar background as you, who have a similar story and similar passions and motivations, to meet them in a really small, safe environment before you're thrown into the mix with seniors and juniors and freshmen and sophomore, and you don't know who's an upperclassman and who's a lower classman, and you don't really feel safe to reach out to anyone. So attending a pre-orientation session would be a really great way to allow you to feel safe, reaching out to someone who's sitting next to you without the fear of, well, they might not like me, or they might not be a new student, or they might, not relate to me. It's a really great way to ignore those hazards and really delve into the college experience.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I guess I don't have any other questions. Do you, Stephanie?
I don't think of any.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.